Make sure our audio's good. All right. Don't hit escape so I can try to hide the bar here for us.
How many people are joining us?
It said 19 and 25.
Okay, we've got 19 so far.
Did she sign up?
Okay, now we should be able to begin.
All right. Great, hello. Can people hear me?
They're probably muted.
Yeah.
They'll need to type in the chat if they can hear you. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on the chat here.
So we have several people in the room. We have Nicole, who is our intrepid admin person. She's going to have her eye on the chat window, so if you have any questions, you can put it in there. And if you're having trouble hearing or any technical issues, just message Nicole. Myself, I'm Christy Sutherland. I'm a family doctor in the downtown east side, and I'm an addiction medicine physician, and I'm the education lead here at the BC CSU. Tanya Boyd was a person with lived experience, and she's not able to come. She had a last-minute childcare logistics that didn't work out, but she sends her regards to everyone. And then, Garth?
I'm Garth Mullins from the BC Association of People on Methadone, and I have been on methadone for about 15 years.
Great. And we also have Amanda here in the room, just a hanger-on. Amanda is one of our program leads here at the BC CSU. Okay, so we're here to talk about the history about the methadone switch of this formulation change that we all remember that happened 4 years ago. We're going to look over some research that has been published about the transition and then discuss how to change people back to the Metadol-D. And then it's great to have Garth here to hear his perspective because he's done so much advocacy work for people who are on methadone. So I remember this. Do you remember?
Absolutely. 2014, February, I think.
Yeah, when BC, we changed over from the generic compounded methadone from the provincial formulary and replaced it with methadose. And this impacted almost 17,000 people on methadone at the time.
Yeah, BC Association of People on Methadone, at the time, we sort of wanted to be involved in the switch. We were suspicious of this radical change that we felt, didn't have, we didn't know what the impacts were going to be. We actually offered to test run it for folks, but we couldn't figure out how Medicare or PharmaCare would pay for it. And we at the very least said, if there's a big change in concentration, really got to advertise that because that's going to affect people. For people who are in the pharmacy, they'll be surprised, but also for people who wind up drinking methadone from other sources, they got to know they're drinking something a lot more concentrated.
Oh,
so we convinced the College of Pharmacists to support us doing a postering, and so you see one of the graphics from that.
Yeah, that's great. This change was decided by government, and it was because methadose didn't require compounding. So one of the rules with pharmacy is if you can have something just in its regular formulation that doesn't need to be mixed with the pharmacy, it's a better standard for pharmacies, and it doesn't need to be stored in the fridge. And this was also thought to decrease the potential for pharmacy error and dosing and diversion, so that pharmacies wouldn't be able to water down the methadone, as some have been doing in the past, because methadose is not able to be watered down. But however, as Garth said, there's no consultation with people in the methadone program at the time.
And we hear reports at the BCA POM of still strange sort of effects with dosages, and we also hear about, diverted methadone is still a thing. You can, if we were at the Vancouver area network of drug users right now, we could walk down the street and buy some in about 3 minutes.
And is it the old formulation or the methadose?
No, it's the methadose. You can buy methadose. Methadone is incredibly rare.
Yeah. So when we look at why this transition happened, one of the studies that was considered at the time was this old one in 1999. It was run by a pharmaceutical company that manufactures methadose, so a bit of bias to consider. And it was 18 people who had a double-blind, three-way crossover trial to look at methadone pharmacodynamics. So people were switched between methadose tablets, methadose liquid, and methadone diskettes. This was done in the UK. And then they had their plasma levels read, and there was no difference in plasma levels among these 18 people between these different formulations.
Yeah, and when we were reacting after the switch, a lot of us on methadone started finding, oh, we aren't feeling so well. So we tried to see the sort of plasma levels too. And Christy, you were there, I think.
Yeah, I did a lot of plasma levels on my patients. Because just it happened so suddenly, I found that people came in and just reported feeling terrible. And that they said that they would wake up in the morning in withdrawal. and that like the pharmacy couldn't open up early enough. They had to get there, they were waiting in line right at 6 a.m. because they said it didn't have legs. That was the quote everyone did. So I did a bunch of peak and troughs on my patients of methadone levels to see what was going on, and they all came back normal.
Yeah, so we sort of started to figure from that, you know, if it's in your blood, if it's in the serum, right, if that's what you test in the blood, maybe it's not somehow getting into the brain. Maybe there's something else. Maybe there's some other explanation. And at the time, we were meeting with the College of Pharmacists, with the College of Physicians and Surgeons, and even with Mallinckrodt Pharmaceutical, who made this stuff. And they just said, oh, it's all in your mind. Don't worry about it. It'll go away. It's all in your. We couldn't get any traction with anybody from the Ministry of Health at the time either.
Yeah, and so many people are relapsed to illicit drug use at this time. So there was some coverage in the news about it, all of these people suffering. So clinically, like I would try split doses for my patients. It's hard to do sometimes with people if they're a bit unstable because that second dose often they miss and then they end up with inconsistent dosing from day to day. And then it went up on, I think, almost everyone, but it's important to remember for pharmacokinetics that increasing a dose will increase the peak plasma concentration, but not prolong the half-life. So you just get a higher curve, but the curve lasts the same amount of time. So going up on the dose in general didn't alleviate any of those symptoms in the early morning that people were having.
You know, one of the worst parts about this is before we were able to sort of start putting the message out, it took us quite a while. We were working with the different agencies involved. Drug users experience this mostly by ourselves. So the methadone would be failing, the methadose would be failing for us. We'd be sick, we'd be using drugs to top up, you know, street drugs, heroin, whatever, to top up, and thus risking overdose. And we have lost some of our membership in this exact way. But we didn't realize that we were part of a whole group that this was happening to, so we felt individually that we were just failing, that we weren't trying hard enough, that we were just going back to using dope because whatever, right? So there was a lot of self-blame, a lot of shame around this. And by the time people were trying to, like, you know, maybe have a split dose or something else, you're already unstable, you're already destabilized, you're already, like, you've lost this kind of things that you put together up to 2014 and before the switch. And so for a lot of people, they used heroin for the last 4 years until what we're learning about today came to them.
Yeah, Garth, I think that's such a good point about isolation, because you've told me about work you're doing outside Vancouver with communities to let those drug users know as well that they're not alone and feeling terrible since the switch, hey?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very hard on family members too. People just who, you know, using drugs can be a very isolating experience. We have to use in secret, it's criminalized. And so the fact of a drug user community in some places like the downtown east side, it's really rare. Like mostly we're isolated and atomized. And so mostly we experience all these phenomena as individual things. Oh, it must just be me. But, and family members see their kid or whatever failing off of methadone, and it's like, why don't you try harder? And blame the kid.
Yeah.
You know, so we just, the harm is sort of multiplied out from the switch.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the Swiss cheese model of error. So we can look back on formulation changes in other places around the world, and that it has been shown in the past that medication transition periods have a pronounced biopsychosocial impact on patients. This was done in the UK in 1992, and it correlated with an increase of non-prescription opioid use, decline in social stability, and an increase in pharmacy break-ins. So really parallel to what we had here, right?
Just, it's amazing to see these slides. I mean, I've seen the research before, but just see it all together and just be like, why didn't the people in charge think of this stuff? You know, if this is evidence-based at all, they would have.
Yeah.
And it must not have been.
Yeah, so then we can go, well, let's look now at the evidence of the impact of the formulation change. So there have been 3 studies that have been concluded here in Vancouver that the formulation switch had significant adverse impacts onto methadone patients. So like, thank you so much for these researchers just really hitting the ground running to look at this change in real time. So we had this published in 2016, Patient Perspectives of Methadone Formulation Change in British Columbia and Outcomes of a Provincial Survey. And 56% reported feeling worse or more dope sick, 50% took additional opioids, and people who reported feeling worse or were dope sick were 9 times more likely to take additional opioids for those who did not. So it's pretty remarkable numbers, but even at the same time, I have to say as a clinician, I think that that's low. I would say that more than half of my patients felt terrible.
Yeah, I mean, you can't find people that will say, methadose is great. Like, I've never met this person who says it, so it does seem conservative.
And then we have looking at impact on HIV care for our province, that for people living with HIV on methadone, during the switch, 11.5% returned to heroin injection, and 15.9% had a drop in optimal HIV adherence immediately after the switch. So I mean, that's really terrible impacts on someone's health to have had their methadone switched, and then that negatively impacts their HIV care. And in this study here, Ryan McNeil did, interviewing study participants experiencing withdrawal symptoms about 14 to 16 hours after the methadose dose, and then had a disruption in treatment engagement, which I think is totally reasonable. When something is not working for you anymore and your life becomes so chaotic, it can be hard to get back into your doctor for your refills.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of people drop out of the methadone program, and I think statistics and that have been collected show that after 2 years, there's only 10 or 15% of the people left who signed on originally.
Now it's like 40. I think it varies by study for sure.
Right.
Yeah, but it's low.
Yeah.
It's less than half.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people just aren't making it, and I think this has really exacerbated that tendency. There's lots of barriers, but certainly if it doesn't work, you're not really incentivized to try and jump through the hoops and stay the barriers.
That's a pretty big barrier to treatment, the treatment not working.
Yeah.
Okay, so why do people feel uncomfortable with this change? And the answer is we don't really know. I love this slide because I did my undergrad in chemistry, and I just had such nostalgia for undergrad Christy thinking about chiral molecules, that methadone is a chiral molecule. So if we think about a hand is a mirror reflection of itself. You can't superimpose one hand upon the other, even though they are the same. So methadone is the same as a hand. So we have an L-alanine and a D-alanine. It's the dexterity of the molecule and the enantiomer. So I mean, just think back to undergrad. And different formulations of methadone may have different ratios of these isomers. So that this has different effects on someone's brain. And so the plasma concentration of the drug is not able to reflect the concentration of the isomers. So this is why patients with a normal plasma concentration still felt terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it felt to me like when we were talking to everybody that we know and work with, that suddenly everyone who was writing with their right hand had to start writing with their left hand. If you think about the right and left-handed shapes of those molecules, all of a sudden you just can't do it. The thing isn't working. It's failing for you, and I think that that is probably part of the explanation. They don't. The way I've heard it said too is that the molecule doesn't fit into the receptor in the same way.
Yeah,
it's got that thumb pointing in a different direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So recently the province noted, where Garth, you were at a meeting, and the province, maybe I'll let you tell the story.
Oh yeah, this was in the summer. We've been meeting with the province, with the College of Pharmacists, with the College of Physicians, with company, everybody, Health Canada, just saying for 4 years, give us the old methadone back, please. And not really getting anywhere. There are these sort of guidelines about compounding that Christy mentioned earlier that are one of the reasons cited for why not. But a staffer from the Ministry of Health in BC said, oh, have you tried liquid Metadol? And I said, what now? We all had never heard of it, and nor had anybody else around the table. And she said, oh, yeah, you should try it. It's a different formulation. It's worth trying. So we went to our doctors and said, can we try liquid Metadol? And for example, my doctor said there is no such thing. So we had to go and find some documentation, work with BCCSU to sort of show people, yes, this exists. There's a process for it to be prescribed. But there was just zero awareness amongst drug users and clinicians about this stuff, or very low anyway. And so we tried it. And a bunch of us, a bunch of Christie's patients and a bunch of people in the BC Center on Substance Use have tried it. I can't tell it apart from the old methadone.
Yeah, it's a dramatic difference. I'm so glad Garth emailed me and let me know that this existed, and so I started switching my patients over. So it's a clear, colorless, and unflavored, commercially compounded formulation of methadone, and it is diluted to 100 milligrams, so it's similar to the older version with in terms of concentration. It's a 1-to-1 conversion for methadose, so if you have someone on 100 of methadose, you would switch them to 100 of Metadol-D. And then you should call the pharmacy to make sure they have it in stock. When I first started doing this, I would tell patients, tell your pharmacy your next prescription will be Metadol-D. And now many pharmacies here in Vancouver have it already in stock for people. But it's nice if you're in a community that hasn't changed over yet to just chat with your pharmacist, they can order it in. And here is the BCCSU update, so you can get more details about the compound and how to, more details about how to prescribe it on our website. And then clinical indications for transitioning, so allergy to methadose or just not doing well on methadose. So I've transitioned almost all of my patients back, that everyone just feels so much better when they transition back to the Metadol-D. I have people come to my office the day after they switch back, not for any medical reason, just to tell me how happy they are. Like that, it's just made such a dramatic difference in their life. A lot of them report that their anxiety is less, their sleep is better, they've stopped using illicit drugs now that they're back on Metadol-D, and that their withdrawal symptoms are well managed, they're not having cravings anymore.
I mean, it's hard to understate how important this is. In fact, I'm lobbying the province right now to get rid of the exemption, to just let doctors just start people on it, like make it entirely a accessible thing. Right now, you'll see, this is the exemption you have to fill, but I think it's really important to do this. And I think that the switch to methadose is really one of the drivers of the current crisis that we're seeing right now. If you think about it, it threw 17 and maybe up to 22,000 people into situations where perhaps half of them, perhaps many more, were dope sick and needing to top up, and now you have thousands of people who are exposed to a vulnerable drug supply in a way that they weren't before. And if there's any possibility of going back, this right now is the path ahead of us. And I think that it's going to be hard for people to trust, right? Because a lot of people are still sort of uncertain about what happened with methadose, and changing your regime, changing your OAT can be scary for people. It's your lifeline. It's the thing that keeps everything together.
Absolutely. And so it's nice for people. I've told everyone you can switch to Metadol-D and switch back if you don't like it, but I've not had anyone switch back.
Mm-hmm.
And the special authority form is pretty easy to fill out. I just say was doing well before, didn't do well on methadose, and would benefit from the old formulation. So you don't need to provide a lot of details. I was thinking one thing you said, Garth, that made me think of my injectable program is that a lot of the patients I do intakes for injectable opioid agonist therapy were people who were stable up until 2014 and then haven't been able to restabilize or get stable since that formulation switch.
Some of us have been on these great, Hobbit-like quests to try and find the right thing, right? So there's been people like on our board who've been through everything, trying to just recapture the stability that she had on methadone before 2014. But Suboxone, Cadian, and the rest, she's been through it searching. And I'm hoping that maybe arriving at Metadol will be what she's looking for.
Yeah. So when you fill out the prescription, it's on the regular methadone pad, and you just write Metadol-D in the special instructions. I find the special authority often comes back the same day. It's usually done within 24 hours. So sometimes if I see someone and I'm switching them over, if their script doesn't need refilled for another few days, I'll just switch it to Metadol-D, knowing that special authority will be approved so quickly. But if they need a prescription that day, sometimes I'll write them 2 prescriptions, so like 60 milligrams for today of method dose, and then 60 milligrams for tomorrow for the Metadol-D for their regular prescription duration.
That's great. And the people at the Ministry of Health have promised us that they will not turn people away, that they will not take months to figure it out, that they will do it. They promised us same day.
Yeah, I found it's very fast. Yeah,
if you hear that that's not happening, or if that's not your experience, please get in touch with the BCCSU so we can troubleshoot that.
Here's another old formulation. So we had a patient perspective that was Tanya, but she was unable to make it. Do you have anything you want to add?
I'm going to say that the BC Association of People on Methadone elects a board, and it's about 6 people. We do this every year. And in the summer of 2014, our group ceased to exist for a while because all the members were fucked up. Sorry, it's what it is. And so was the board. And so everybody was out having to score dope and get money to score dope, and all the things that they were doing with their life before that gave it structure and meaning and purpose were blown away. And it took us ages to cobble it back together, and we're still really not as organized as we were before. And we just saw this happen with lots and lots of our people. And I started interviewing people in 2014 and all the way through, and we just we got incredibly consistent responses from people, even folks that hadn't talked to each other about it. And I think, you know, what we really feel deeply is the people who were stable, who were housed, who their life was together, and then the dominoes started falling in 2014. And in the next couple of years, we actually lost a bunch of people, including people from our board. And we at the BC APOM see this directly as a result of the switch. Like you can see it happening in people's lives in real time. And so we never stopped trying to lobby and fight for some solution to this all the way through. And we just had meetings with cabinet ministers where our board would be in tears, like of anger at not being heard, of frustration in their lone lives, of grief for missing our colleagues who were taken from this. And this is like an insane life preserver to finally get. And I run into people, like Christy was saying, on the street who are like shaking me saying, you can go get the old methadone now. It's not quite the old methadone, it's Metadol, but they want me to go get it. I said, I know, and or they're saying, I finally slept through the night. I forgot what having a proper sleep was like. I haven't had a proper sleep for 4 years. And Dean was saying that to me, you know, and it's really something to look out for. And I think that the individual patient may not always recognize that opportunity.
Oh, totally.
You know?
I bring it up with each patient.
Yeah.
I have it flagged in my clinic that every single methadone patient we ask if they want to switch, and 100% of them have wanted, and 100% feel better.
And I think that a lot of patients might not know that what's going on in their lives leads back to the shape of the methadose molecule.
Oh, totally.
You know?
Or that sometimes I think people don't realize how all-encompassing the effects of the methadone were versus methadose. And so I've talked to patients about how their anxiety is better, or how their concentration is better. So other parts of their lives that were impacted by the change, not just like cravings and drug use. It has to do with quality of life as well, I think. So in conclusion, so many people in our province destabilized with this transition from methadone to methadose. But there's an option now to transition them to something called Metadol-D, a similar compound to methadone where people feel much better. It's early days still. We've only been doing this a couple months, and so there's no formal evaluation or research that's done. But for me, I don't feel as a clinician that I need that, because patients just all say they feel better. So you can apply for the special authority quite easily, and then use your regular methadone prescription to write Metadol-D in the special instructions. Do you have any questions?
I think if you want to hit escape for us, I can pop it open there.
Okay.
Wonderful. There might be any questions.
So feel free to type questions if you like.
There's about a 30-second delay, so I'll just get some time there. Okay. Just start from the top.
Yeah. Oh, I would do it in pregnancy for sure, because I think that pregnant person would feel much better. And so I would just do a 1-to-1 ratio to switch them over and then see them frequently. Oh, I'll repeat the question. Good point, Amanda. For Metadol-D in pregnancy, if there's concern with switching formulations, I would say no, there's no concern, and you should just switch them over. So Dr. Stone said her sixth sense is telling me that the switch is being incentivized by the pharmacies. Are you aware if it's more financial remuneration for pharmacies? Oh, I don't think so. Do you guys know of any? No?
Maybe could you tell us more about how you're seeing this incentivizing happen? Like the switch to Metadol from methadose is being incentivized?
Let's go to Riley's question. When switching someone to Metadol-D, is it possible to just add Metadol-D when the special authority is approved to the prescription, or is a second prescription necessary? We can talk with the College of Pharmacists about that. I think that it'll probably be 2 prescriptions, because they require dates that specify drugs, and that they are different drugs with different DIN numbers on PharmaNet. So the pharmacist would need a second prescription. And then cost difference? None. Same cost. Joanna. Plans G, C, and W for coverage. I'm gonna phone a friend and have Amanda look it up. Paul Perry has a question. Oh yeah, a copy of the slides and a video of this, or not a video, but the audio of this will be up on the website. Why do we have to still apply for special authority when it's so obvious that it's better? David Wilson, I think that that's a good question. You know, over time this may change. This is just how it is for right now. Hopefully it'll change over time, especially because right now the exemption is only for 1 year. So I'm anticipating having to do 450 more special authority requests a year from now. But fingers crossed we won't have to.
I agree, and we are calling on the government to get rid of that, to just make it widely available.
Yeah, it's useless paperwork, basically, yeah.
But I think what we know is every little speed bump knocks people off.
Oh, for sure.
So it's like the theory that Amazon has, that they want you to buy something in 1 click, because if you have to do 2 or 3 clicks, 60% less people buy the thing because that tiny bit of extra effort. I think it magnifies the effect. It's not a tiny effort, and it's something that the patient might feel or the doctor, and so we want to get rid of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just in the special authority, I write less and less and less each time, and it still always gets approved. I just say, my first ones were like novels. I just say, was doing well on methadone, we switched to methadose, has increased cravings, and I just ask the patient, like, how do you feel? And I just list sweats, relapse, whatever it is that's going on in their life, just a few lines, and then say would benefit from Metadol-D.
Do we have a sample on the website as part of that?
Yeah, we'll load it up. Yeah, for sure. And then Lorinda, hello. You're wondering about how Metadol-D is different than old methadone biochemically. So this is what we don't really know. We just know it has to do with the chirality of the molecule, that perhaps there's different ratios of the isomers.
Metadol-D versus the old methadone, is that what you said?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that's a good question.
Yeah.
The main difference that the authorities seem to feel is that you don't have to compound one. The old methadone you mix in the pharmacy, the new stuff, or the Metadol-D, you can just, comes manufactured. But like as a patient, I couldn't tell the difference. A lot of people seem to feel it's the same, but I don't think we've been able to compare them in any more detailed way, right?
Yeah. I have the answer from Joanne's question. It's eligible for coverage under income-based fair PharmaCare, 100% covered for those in PharmaCare Plan C, Income Assistance, Plan G, and Plan W. So totally covered. Okay, so Sarah's reporting, I'm getting lots of patients asking that I know are normally at pharmacies that have kickbacks. They have never complained about side effects before. When I said I could link into it and talk to them, they informed me I can call their pharmacist and they can walk me through it.
So pharmacies have kickbacks regardless, right, on both formulations.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a problem with pharmacies having kickbacks. It's been here for years, but it's a problem depending on your perspective. But it's been here for way longer than since before the switch. Yeah. And I don't think that that's incentivizing people, because people get kickbacks right now on methadose.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think the pharmacy gets any, it's the same billing codes for the pharmacist to do Metadol-D as to do methadone and methadose.
And I think that though patients, you're going to experience that patients haven't reported this before, because I think that a lot of people get on something and they're just like, well, this isn't that great, but I guess this is what it is. Mm-hmm. And I mean, when a lot of people start any OAT, it takes a while to kind of kick in, and it's got to win your confidence. It's got to win your heart before you trust it to not use dope. And maybe that trust never comes with a lot of people for methadose, and maybe they just think this is what it's like, and what's the point in complaining? Or even worse, since there is sort of like out there in the world, I'm not saying the person who's asking to practice, but there is sort of this punitive culture left over where people can get carries taken away, or in some cases things reduced, or there are situations that the clinic can change or whatever, if they sort of report that they're using or complain, or you kind of want to smooth things over there with your doctor. And we have a lot of that still in Vancouver. So I think the way people describe their situations can change depending on their confidence and their feeling of safety in the actual clinic.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Paul says, thank you, you're welcome. Great. And Rob's question, can we use this formulation for new starts? I haven't been using it for new starts, but I've been offering it to patients, because I've been offering it to everyone. Some of my patients have been saying, like, oh, I never was on the old methadone, because they've started in the past 4 years. And so I have just filled out the paperwork for them, and I've told them they can try it and see if they like it. So I think it's totally reasonable to use for new starts.
Definitely, I would.
Originally, the switch was suggested as a quality improvement thing because you would not need to reconstitute the medications. Is there quality concerns for the new formulation? I would think that they were the same quality concerns as the old methadone with the potential for diluted medication, that people might not be getting the full dose, but I think that that's a pharmacy issue and a pharmacy regulatory issue and not a medication issue.
But why would there be? Because methadose and Metadol are both manufactured and
The Metadol, the pharmacist dilutes.
Right,
Yeah, so that some pharmacists don't put in enough of the drug and dilute it up.
right, I see.
So it's just a potential.
Yeah, I guess this argument has definitely stalked us, and we have experience of this in the downtown east side. Like, people have definitely compared notes about what pharmacy is the most reliable, consistent strength methadone, and you don't hear that so much more with methadose. But yeah, I guess it could happen. But also, we've seen people dispense methadose in a variety of different ways. So there's kind of the same possibility for dilution.
Yeah.
With any liquid, really.
Yeah, totally. And any further questions? Joanne, you're welcome.
It looks like that's it for now. Wonderful.
Okay, wonderful, everyone. Anyone can send me an email if you have any other questions, and we'll put this up on the website. And thank you so much for your time.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody.